All right, this is third grade, Module 7, Lesson 10. And in this lesson, we begin the process of helping our students understand the difference between perimeter and area. And really, we're going to begin by explaining what is perimeter and what is area. As a teacher for 26 some odd years, in middle school even, I've learned that students, for whatever reason, always seem to mix up a perimeter with area. And I think that's because we jump, as teachers, we jump to this abstract definition and don't give students long enough time to just really play with the tactile connections of perimeter versus area. So this lesson is a very beginning idea of perimeter. We're going to connect it to the concept of a string. It's kind of a classic, but that's what's going on. We're going to be going slow in order to go fast. We're going to be going slow so that our students have that understanding, that conceptual understanding of perimeter, and so that later years they won't get it confused with area. So let's get started.
So what students are being asked to do in this homework assignment is they're being asked to trace the perimeter. So they're going to trace the perimeter, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of going, and we're trying to understand that ultimately as we move to later grade levels or later lessons, that the distance that we travel as we trace the perimeter, that is the perimeter. So the distance that we travel is the perimeter. It's a measurement, and it's a linear measurement as opposed to square units, right? And so we're going to do the trace, this one. So we're just tracing, and that's the idea. And that perimeter doesn't have to be unique to special, like typical figures. It could be perimeter is connected to any kind of closed figure like that. It's like an arrow. Now explain how you know you've traced the perimeter. So we're getting students to understand that it's the outer boundary of that figure. It's not the inside, it's the outer boundary. It's the shape, it's the line that's going around that boundary. An idea would be explain how you could use a string to figure out what shape has the greatest perimeter. So the idea is we need students to be connecting that this, if we used a piece of string to go around this, in this case the trapezoid, that string could then be straightened out, and we would have a length of string. And we could do the same thing with this pentagon and use a piece of string and then straighten it out, and then we could compare the two pieces of string to figure out which figure has the longer or the greater perimeter. And that's the idea of this question down here. Here, students are being asked to draw a rectangle, any rectangle. So of course, parents and teachers, heads up, students might draw some pretty funky rectangles. They may even draw a square, because we've learned recently that a square is a specialized rectangle. So heads up on that. And of course, answers are going to vary. And let's say I'm drawing here's my rectangle right there. Woohoo! All right, so trace the perimeter. So we're going to trace the perimeter, shade the area. So of course, shading, it means we're going to be shading the inside of that perimeter. So if we wanted to do the area, that would be this stuff inside. If we wanted to trace the perimeter, that would be out here is our perimeter. And how is the perimeter different from the area? And so parents and teachers, we really want to give our students plenty of time to grapple with this difference. We don't want to just jump to a definition or an explanation. Let your students have the time to grapple with the difference of how to explain the difference between perimeter and area. And of course, we know that the perimeter is that distance around the boundary of the figure, while the area is the amount of space enclosed in the area. But man, those two definitions, and those are meaningless to third graders unless students have had the opportunity to grapple with the definitions themselves. And lastly, Maya draws the shape shown below. Noah, so ostensibly, really, what happened is Maya had actually drawn the original figure, and I'm going to draw it like this. So this Maya originally drew this, but Noah colors the inside. And he says he colored the perimeter. Maya says he colored the area. Who's right? And of course, we want our students to understand that this is showing the perimeter. This boundary here is the perimeter, while this inside stuff being shaded in, this is the area. So we want our students to know that this inside stuff is the area, while the boundary here is the perimeter. And that wraps up 3rd grade Module 7, Lesson 10, beginning that process of learning about perimeter and how it compares to area.